Welcome, everybody. Good to see you. So we are going to be digging in here. But first, let me introduce myself. So I am George Miller. I am a coach at Wright Foundation and owner of our career program. And on behalf of Wright Foundation for the Realization of Human Potential and its division, the Wright Graduate University for the Realization of Human Potential, its board, our staff, students, and faculty, we are grateful to have you join us here tonight. And a big thank you in particular to our board and our donors whose contributions are allowing us to provide this training for no charge. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit. And the Wright Foundation, we design and deliver innovative curriculum, coaching, training, consulting to ignite possibilities for thousands of people, nationally, internationally. We do this through creating connection, nurturing vision, and driving contribution. So, welcome everyone. I am excited to explore tonight with you the neuroscience of connecting and how an authentic connection with yourself changes everything. But first, I want to set us up for success and make sure that you create the best possible experience for yourself to get the most out of this workshop. And the things I'm sharing here, I love these. On our More Life training, we call them the operating agreements. I take these into many events, meetings, and things I do so that I set myself up mentally to get the most out of the things I'm doing. So I'm excited to share these with you. So number one, participate in the polls and chat and journal, really engage, really make this self for you. Ask yourself questions. Sometimes questions are a little uncomfortable. It's fine. Be with that discomfort and apply the material. Be thinking about how you're going to be applying the material. So those things, engaging, participating, really asking yourself the questions about that this material is going to bring up for you, and then applying the material, thinking about how you're going to use it. All right, and now the next step is I want to get us set up well on Zoom. So you might be in a meeting or webinar. You're going to want to make sure that you can drag the screen. Watch how we're doing that here. So sometimes you might want to see my face bigger. Sometimes you're going to be like, all right, hide that dude and let's get this video or whatever we're looking up. Let's have that bigger. So you can take your mouse like that and drag it over, and you can control the size of the images there. Okay, great. Thank you for that. And now the next thing we want to look at is creating value for yourself. So think about that. How are you going to create value for yourself? This is a big thing, a big skill to learn. So one of the ways I want you to do that is to eliminate distractions. Be focused here. Be focused now on you and what you want from this. So get rid of, cell phones, turn it off. Make sure you're not getting notifications on your computer that are distracting you. Really be present with yourself. So eliminate the distractions, notify your housemates that, hey, I'm in this training, either come check it out with me or leave me alone for, a couple hours. And familiarize yourself with Zoom. So if you haven't typed something into the chat, yes, Janet, I know, I love the music too. And Cherie, good to see you on here. If you haven't already, type something into the chat, say hello. Hello, everybody, good to have you here. So type in there, yes. Hello, Sin, welcome. Welcome, Wendy Lee, good to see you there. From Texas, woo, right on. Yeah, go ahead and put in where you're coming from. Hello, Tej, welcome. Fantastic. From Scottsdale, Arizona, Maryland, hello, Brandy. From Tennessee, Stephanie, hello. Oh, Valley Forge, really, Tej? Oh, so cool. I went to school around there. Beautiful area, cool. Savita, hello. Oh, from St. Louis. Good having you here. Samantha, Chicago. South Bend, Indiana, Janet, welcome. And Cherie, from Iowa, welcome. Catherine, Michigan, and New Mexico, right on. Yes, hey, Sadia, good to have you. and Zandra, Littleton, Colorado. Well, welcome everybody. Great job with the chat. So we are going to, Canadian. Awesome. Okay, we are international now. And from River Forest, Danielle, welcome. So there's a couple things I want to get into. We're about halfway through how to get the most out of this. I also, anything that you're doing in the chat, we're going to keep it with the training, keep with what we're doing. So as you're typing in there, don't do anything like sharing links to other things or trying to sell things in there. It's not cool. Don't do that. Hello, Pierre from Canada as well. Good to have you. And keep the chat to the content that we're talking about, sharing how you relate. Again, we want you to be engaging with the content and getting the most for yourself. So as you're doing that, in the question of it, be curious and open-minded. And it's great to share how you relate to this. You know, we don't want you to have off-topic conversations that can be a distraction from this. And then I also want to say this is proprietary content. So I love it when you share about what you got. If you have friends or family or something, you're like, oh, wow, you know, I just realized from this training I took that, like, you know, I've been thinking about myself this way, and this is how it shows up in my life. You might say this to your spouse, like, oh, wow, I finally am hearing what you've been telling me. You might share stuff yourself vulnerably that kind of way from this training. What you're not going to do is record this and then like post it on social media, or like say, oh yeah, somebody so-and-so in the chat said this. Don't do that. This is confidential for people who are here in terms of the media stuff that we're sharing, and also individual shares. So do I have everybody's agreement with that? Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So let me double check these. I think we've got everything in that we need to talk about as far as getting the most out of this. So now I want to hear from you. What do you want out of this webinar? Think about it. Do you want to have more fulfilling, satisfying relationships? To be more authentic in relationship? What about having more intimacy and closeness in your relationships? To understand why I relate or why I don't relate to others the way that I do. To learn how to decode and reframe my ideas about relationships and connecting. Or to see more potential and possibilities for connection in my life. Or to better connect with those I interact with. I want to hear from all of you. Let's get a poll up for this. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Jay. What do you want out of here? So go ahead and click in there. What are the things? You can pick more than one. Let's get a sense of why we are here tonight. To have more fulfilling, satisfying relationships. Or is it more about being authentic, who you really are in relationships?
You know, you needed all the above in that poll.
Right on, Janet. Totally. And if that's the case, click them all. But be with them. How to understand how I relate or don't relate to others. Learn how to decode and reframe my ideas about relationships. And this one, to see more potential and possibilities for connection in my life. Sometimes that's a real beautiful skill to learn. About seeing more possibilities. Okay, great. So out of this, oh, interesting. So number one is to understand how I relate or don't relate to others the way I do. Well, that is beautiful, because that is at the heart of it is when I understand myself and when I can really connect to myself, then that's going to give me the data that I need in how to connect to other people. If I can't really do that first, then I'm not going to be as successful in my relationship. So I think that's spot on. We got votes for all of them, but that one edged out a couple other ones. Next up was to better interact with others. So, okay, so that's how we're gonna get into this. We're gonna learn about this. So I am honored, though, to be with all of you who are here, because you are all people who want to learn and grow. That's why you're here. You want to develop your emotional intelligence, learn to deal, cope better, to be a positive influence with others. And I know that there's many other things that you could be doing. You could be working, getting in that last thing. You could be with your friends or family. You could be checking your social media feeds, or you could be watching the rest of that Netflix series that you fell asleep watching in the middle of the night. But you chose to be here right now to grow, improve your life, to develop your relationships, and to make a difference in your life and the lives of others. So congratulate yourselves. Give yourselves a big round of applause. Woo, woo, for wanting more out of life. Yeah. Some pats on the back. That's right. Way to show up for yourselves and be here. So I asked you before what you wanted from this webinar tonight, but now I want you to think about beyond just tonight and into your whole life. What do you want more of in your life? So let's take a look at this. Do you want to have deeper relationships, to have more time, money, and energy, be more satisfied or fulfilled, and better have quality of life? You know, what's your quality of life? How much are you enjoying things? You want more of that. You want to have a stronger immune system, to realize your potential and see possibilities. Do you want to be more loving and accepting of yourself and others, or to feel safe and secure, or to have more personal and professional success? So Jay, let's get a poll up for that one, and let's get everybody in on this. What is it that I know I want all of these, but what's the ones that really stick out to you right now, that really tug on your heart? Have deeper relationships, more time, money, energy, more satisfied, more fulfillment, to have a stronger immune system, to realize my potential and see possibilities, to be more loving and accepting of myself and others, and to feel safe and secure, to have more personal and professional success. Okay, I think we're good on submitting all the above, Janet, right? Click them all. So this one was a bigger lead on to realize my potential and see possibilities. Yeah. I mean, and of course that's going to help influence the other things. So that's beautiful. Okay, so let's look at that. And then second up, we have to have deeper relationships and to be more loving and accepting of myself and others. Okay, well, beautiful. Let's move forward with that then. So our research shows that all of these result from applying the skills that I'm going to introduce to you tonight, having greater connection and fulfillment in your relationships. But I want to introduce to you somebody who means a whole lot to me. She has put together a lot of trainings, and we're going to be interacting with her tonight. Many of you have met her before. So I want you to meet one of our founders, who is going to be a key guide for us tonight. So all this juicy content that we're exploring, it's all integrated from her tireless research into what it takes to really live great lives. So she's a peerless educator, world-class coach, lifestyles expert, inspirational speaker, best-selling author, and corporate consultant. She has been called one of America's ultimate experts by Women's World magazine and has appeared in over 1,000 television. It's probably like, well, let's say thousands of television and radio interviews, including ABC's 2020 and the Today Show. A trailblazer in human development, she co-founded the Wright Foundation for the Realization of Human Potential, which is all of what you're engaged in now. This is an aspect of Wright Foundation for the Realization of Human Potential. And she is also the founder for the Society of Femininity in Action, SOFIA, an organization providing revolutionary leadership training for women. She is the author with Dr. Bob Wright of Transformed, The Science of Spectacular Living, as well as their relationship book, The Heart of the Fight. The Heart of the Fight is like my most read book ever. So huge plug for that. If you haven't gotten it, it's so useful in all relationships. So I also want to say, personally that Dr. Judith Wright has the work that she does, I mean, personally with me, but also the curriculum that she's put together has helped me transform my life significantly. I have an understanding of myself and relationships and my potential that I think I wouldn't have known, or I certainly wouldn't have been able to live into that potential without the research and curriculum that she's put together. Her gift of synchronizing things and bringing together elements from thousands of years ago to current neuroscience is just phenomenal. So she means a great deal to me. And I would like to continue welcoming her through the media. So help me welcome Dr. Judith Wright.
Her work has been featured in the media nationwide. 2020 loved her. Oprah wanted to be like her. Diane Sawyer learned from her.
People she serves make more money, have better relationships, more fulfilling careers. She's here, dedicated to your success, Dr. Judith Wright.
All right, woo woo. So in this webinar, let's go on a journey with Dr. Judith Wright. Now here's some of the background from what you can expect tonight and where her research comes from. Well, let's check this out.
This is important because this is the kind of things we're going to be talking about, because our research shows that everything we just voted for, everything on that whole list, results from applying the skills that I'm introducing you to tonight and having greater connection and more fulfillment in all of your relationships. So this is perfect. If you want this, we've got it. That's the kinds of things we're introducing you tonight are going to lead to. So let me give you a sense of where I'm coming from with all of this. You know, I've been studying, we have at the Wright Foundation, and we've been studying people who live great lives for over like 35 years. We're known for our emotional curriculum, emotional intelligence, our relationships work, and great lives at the Wright Foundation is part of our innovative curriculum and our training, coaching, consulting to bring out that fast. And what we've been studying are people who have really great relationships, have a good relationship with themselves, have a career success, that tend to be good leaders and contributors in the world around them, they make a bigger difference. And we wanted to find out, what are they doing that makes them have those results throughout their life? Doesn't mean everything's perfect, but there's something kind of amazing about what goes on. And studied that process so then we could then teach that to others. So that's what I'm going to be sharing. And relationships was a big part of this. So at Wright Graduate University, we also study these things. We're going to share a lot of research with you tonight. We are an accredited university. We grant master's and doctoral degrees in transformational leadership and coaching. We also have graduate certificates in emotional intelligence and social intelligence. We teach quarter-long courses, graduate courses in relationships and the neuroscience of relationships and of connecting. We're pulling from that tonight. So through all this research, we've discovered this process that we call evalating. It's a Latin word. It means like to unfurl and to fly up and make big transformational moves by studying these people who live these great lives, that have these satisfying, fulfilling, intimate relationships. They're also the people that tend to navigate crises and tough times really well. They take charge of their lives and create their lives, and they've got a sense of well-being and that sense of satisfaction that you were saying that you wanted in your life. But what we found is that they live and they follow and embody kind of a 6-phase process, 6 skills throughout their lives. I'll give you a brief intro to that. We're going to focus on the first 2 tonight so that we can see how that relates to relationships. So the first thing that they all do, they focus on what they yearn for deep inside, their deeper yearning. They're guided by the deep desires of their own heart, not what's dictated or programmed by others or society. Those yearnings we all have, to love and be loved, to be known, to be heard, to be understood, to connect, to belong, to be affirmed, to be valued, to matter, to make a difference. And they guide themselves from those deep longings in their heart. They're in touch with their emotions and they're focused on their own values, not other people's agenda, but what matters to them. And then once they're more clear in that, once they're guided by their hearts in that way, then they engage in ways to meet those deep yearnings. And you're going to see tonight why that's so important in our relationship. And they do that. They learn, they grow, they experiment, and they're present more aware, they take more risks, they live more adventurously, and they take kind of right action that would actually fulfill those deeper yearnings. And by doing that, they revelate, which is that next scalar phase. They become more aware of what we call their matrix, their limiting beliefs, the restricting family and cultural influences. They're more conscious of what's going on with them, what's going on inside, what are their motivations, and what is their programming? What have they been taught about relationships, for example? Is that serving them? They're much more aware of their matrix, that programming that we have. And with that, once they realize that, they start to liberate beyond those limits that we have, those mistaken beliefs often that we have. And they experiment and they live beyond those personal and cultural and family limits. And they're much more willing to live more adventurously, audaciously, break the rules, but to really be more free to become who they really yearn to become. And when they do that, consistently and strategically, they change their programming of their thoughts and their feelings and their beliefs, and they rematrix, build a new matrix of rewiring neural pathways to embody those new empowering beliefs in their ways of being, to become who they yearn to become, and to dedicate to becoming their very, very best and contributing to others becoming their best. In order to do all of this, they need to dedicate, to make their lives about being the best they can be, growing themselves fully, and being a bigger contribution in the world around. So everyone you've ever admired has actually lived these things. You may not have known it or named it, but these are pretty critical for living a pretty satisfying life. And they're the key to really living a great life and having great relationships. And it's also related to having tremendous social-emotional intelligence. So we're going to pull on yearning and engaging tonight and teach you what that has to do with our relationships. So everything I'm sharing tonight is research-based, our own research, social science research, positive psychology, existential philosophy, neuroscience, and all kinds of things we're weaving together. So, and we're a little bit of a specific field in neuroscience of interpersonal neurobiology, relationship research as well. Interpersonal neurobiology is how our relationships create who we are, and how who we are is we can transform through our relationships. So we're going to pull from that tonight as well. So tonight we are going to explore with how to recognize the ways that we were raised that have to do with our relationships and the messages we receive, how we relate to others is hardwired into our brains from early on in our childhood and throughout our development, and how we can rewire our brains to have more authentic, intimate connections in our lives. It's all based on science and research and our experience. And we're learning some of the skills needed for satisfying, fulfilling relationships, especially the engagement continuum, that second phase of engaging we're going to dive into tonight to help you really create the life and the relationships you really deeply desire.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Judith Wright. That Evalating model is so beautiful. Some of you are deeper in the journey of working with that than others, but we are going to look at those first two phases. We're going to explore how to recognize the ways that we've been raised and how the messages that we received about how that has us interact and relate with others and how that's hardwired into our brain. So for those of you in the year of more or who are going to be starting, you're getting a sneak peek into the robust relationship quarter here. So we're going to show you how you can rewire your brain to have a more authentic, intimate connection in your life. This is based on science and research. And to learn about this stuff, in learning about the engagement continuum, we're going to be taking a further look at this. And I want to get a sense from all of you, what is it that you want? So in your relationships, what do you think about? What makes them bad? You know, let's start off with the bad before moving on to the other stuff. What makes a bad relationship? What are characteristics of a bad relationship? So go ahead and type into the chat, you know, what makes a bad relationship? Controlling, distrust. Yeah, Stephanie. What makes a bad relationship? Lack of trusting. Yeah. Lack of caring. Easy, it's one way, always to them. Inability to communicate. Yeah. Oh, yeah, communication breakdowns, or just, you know, ill will. That's another one. Not being honest. Negativity, yeah. Toxic rigidity. Ooh, I like that, Tej. That's yeah, rigidity. Because yeah, right, we're learning and growing. Life is always changing. Manipulation, blaming, ego, lack of communication, giving up on both, putting in, oh, dang, Wendy, yep. Wanting everything your way, disrespect your past. Oh, Janet, yeah. I think we're going to take more of a look at that. So what do you think makes a bad relationship? Let's take a look at this poll. I know actually we're getting tons of stuff here, but I think we can categorize this stuff. And if not, then I'm glad that it's in the chat as well. So mistrust, lying, dishonesty. Yeah, we got that. Manipulation. Lack of respect. Combative, being mean, negativity, being withdrawn. Oh, yep. Selfish, apathy, lack of communication. Okay, cool. So now let's take a look at this. I think all of these, but what in your, pick the ones that you would say, you're guilty of, or you see showing up, because these all make for a bad relationship, but let's make it personal and kind of pick the ones, I'm clicking on being withdrawn. That's a tendency that I've had that I'm working on. Apathy, lack of communication. That's another one of mine. Oh man, I guess I'm going to click lying and dishonesty, because lying by omission, I think, counts, especially in a relationship. So, and I'm going to say lack of respect for myself, actually. So I'm going to submit those as the ones that I am kind of most realizing right now in this moment in time. So go ahead and click on the ones that you're kind of aware of or working on for yourself. Yeah, Stephanie, right? Oh, Stephanie, how about you lead this? I love that. Oh, Sylvia, I don't know if you were able to see the poll. It might have been closed. And Sadia. Oh. Whoa. Okay, this is so number one, and tied for number one is Sadia and Sylvia. Let's check in next time. I'll try to see the chat sooner in the poll process. Sorry about that. But in this, so we are tied for mistrust and being withdrawn. So that's the stuff that we all related to in this. Oh, and then I scrolled down a little further and see lack of communication. Okay, so this is big. So mistrust, being withdrawn, and lack of communication. All right, well, let's look at this as we're going into the evening. Now, I want us to think about good characteristics. What are the characteristics of a good relationship? What makes a good relationship? What are the characteristics of a good relationship? Respect. Yes. Communication. Yep. Yeah, basically the opposite of the things that we were looking at. Showing affection. Yes, Avita. Non-judgment. Marilyn, that's going to be a tough one because I am a judgmental asshole. But, it's probably true. Transparency. Yeah. Yeah. Open communication, expressing gratitude. Yeah. Susanna, totally right. Often forget about that stuff. Tej, positive, respect, open, genuine interest, beautiful. Respect, caring, common goals together, honesty, taking responsibility, sin, yes. To better know yourself. Oh yeah, Marilyn. Huh. I think we'll find out more about that too. Caring, owning accountability, respect, being present. Yeah, Janet. And communication, Amani. Okay, well, let's get a poll on these. Oh, before we get to the poll, let's look at what we have here on the slide. See if we missed anything in the chat. We've got honesty, trust, nourishment, respect, compassion, open communication. Yeah, we're hitting these. Empathy, support. Oh, yeah, empathy. So really being able to feel, relate to somebody. Intimacy, attention, Acceptance. Non-judgmental, yep, I'm working that one. Positivity. So go ahead and click on the ones. Obviously these all make a good relationship, but what are the ones that are most on your heart? We look back at the Evalating model, the ones that really tap your yearnings. The compassion, nourishment, respect, open communication, empathy. I'm clicking on intimacy and attention. Acceptance. Oh, these all feel good. Nourishment, honesty, trust. I think that's a really big one. Okay, and I'm putting in open communication. There's so much that I withhold without even being like realizing that I'm withholding. It's a big one for me. Let's take a look at these. Yeah, wow. Honesty and trust is number one. That's the one that we most clicked on. With number two, close running up to that is open communication and empathy and support. Yeah. I think we've probably got some cooperators in here with the empathy and support one. So open communication, empathy, support, and honesty and trust. Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing all of those. So these are things that it takes in a good relationship, things that we want to develop. But I want to hear from Dr. Judith Wright about how it is that we come to engage this way. What are the beliefs about us that are developed that make a good or versus bad relationship? How is this wired into us in childhood? So let's look at the neuroscience of our matrix, of what we call our matrix, how we see the world.
Relationship patterns come from, and what are they, and how does that work? Alfred Adler was an amazingly powerful, beautiful, and insightful psychologist. He was a contemporary of Freud, and he was the founder of individual psychology. So Alfred Adler says that we form beliefs in 4 areas. We form beliefs about ourselves, beliefs about the world, beliefs about what the world expects from us, and what we expect from the world, what we might call our matrix, this neural net of our beliefs, behaviors, and expectations. And it starts from infancy on, because we are actually kind of programmed without our conscious awareness by the time we're about 6 or 7 years old. It's quite something to think about that, because children, until about the time we're 6 or 7, we can develop more of a different kind of critical thinking. We have a different kind of brainwave than we do when we're older as adults. We're more of it in the hypnagogic state, kind of that dreamy, creative way of children. But what that also means is that we're very susceptible to being hypnotized. So really, these messages get laid down. And the very best hypnotists on the planet are called parents. That's really how they are. How they are and with us and what they say and what we hear repeatedly. It's all kind of getting downloaded, literally like the movie Matrix, when Trinity would get a download or whatever. That's actually kind of what happens as we're growing up. And that whatever's downloaded for our experiences without our conscious awareness becomes a template for us in our relationships the rest of our lives. This is your matrix doesn't literally look like a Tinker Toys, but I want to kind of get the grid of our neural beliefs, those neural pathways. And what happens, we filter all of our life experiences through those beliefs. So that determines then our feelings, our thoughts, our words, our actions, results. Because all of life gets filtered through that lens, like these glasses that we wear, or these beliefs that kind of translate all of our experience. And often our view of people through our matrix colors our perceptions of others, because sometimes we don't even see who people really are. Because understanding your matrix can help you move from seeing your coworkers like this. Your coworkers sometimes they're like evil, they're out to get me, they're competitive. Somehow you just like see something with them, like the ugly stepsisters in the Cinderella story. But actually, if we can understand our matrix, sometimes we can start to have them look like this, which is really who they really are. So without coloring them through the lens of our matrix, we may not be seeing them exactly as they are. So we're going to work with this neuroscience of connecting and really look at the roots of our beginnings of how we relate in our childhood. And I'm going to use my husband, Bob, and partner as the right developmental model to really help us understand this. He's developed a beautiful model of adult development that's modeled on childhood development. And it's related, obviously, to our adult development. We follow those same stages. So I want to show you this, and we're going to kind of talk through what this is. You don't need to memorize this or whatever. I'm just going to use it as a visual device. So there's the first level of our development as children, but it's also still inside of us. It's like when we're born till about 6 months old. And this little babies, our job is to survive at that time, you know, just to eat and breathe and be able to grow. It's really about survival. And we have developmental tasks at every level of our development. And at this level, our tasks are to survive, to develop a sense of security, and to develop trust in ourselves and in the world around us. And this is very important about our interactions actually help us develop a sense of trust or not, help us feel secure or not. And that becomes the beginning of our security and trust the rest of our lives if we're not consciously shifting that later in our life. The primary emotion at this level is fear. You know, it's just like, am I going to get fed? Am I going to be okay? Am I going to get tended to? We don't have thought at that level. But what happens at this level through our interactions with our parents, caregivers, whoever's tending to us, is to the extent that trust and security gets laid down, that affects our relationships for the rest of our lives. And that's why it's so important. And I'll give you some other ways for us to look at this in just a minute. I'll kind of lay the framework and then we'll play with this. The second level is for about 6 months to 18 months old. And that's their original development, but those levels of development still are in us as adults. At this, if you think about a 6-month-old to 18-month-old, now there's more interactive at that time. There are developmental tasks here, but it's really to really develop a sense of self. The child starts to become more of themselves through being affirmed and interacted with from others. So others see this baby, see the child, reflect back, and getting a sense of, oh, you exist and what you are. Developing your sense of self and developing a sense of yourself in relationship. Now another emotion starts to develop here, and we do have joy all the way through here. But another feeling, the primary feeling at this level is hurt. If we're not seen, if we're not played with, if we're not affirmed, if we're not tended to, we can feel our feelings get hurt in relationship. And at this level, to the extent that we experience affirmation, being seen, being reflected back, develop a sense of ourselves and that sense of comfort and sense of closeness, really having a safe haven and security at this level, that's the extent, whatever we experience then actually is going to influence that experience of security and trust and closeness and intimacy with the rest of our lives as well. This is how important this is. There's different yearnings at both of these levels. At level 1, we really yearn to survive, to be safe, to be secure, to trust. At this level, from 6 months to 18 months, it's more about to be seen, to know that we exist, to be heard, to be understood, to really connect, to be close, and to be able to see and sense others. So it's how we're developing. And ideally, if we had an ideal first 2 level stages, we would be accurately seen in the here and now, in the present moment with ourselves, with positive regard, consistently and unconditionally. Well, none of us had this total ideal beginning. We had good parts of it, obviously, but none of us had it totally ideal. But this neural net, this programming from these experiences gets laid down at these stages, and it affects us in our relationships the rest of our lives.
Wow. So that was big. I was just typing this huge thing into the chat about how I'm relating to that. And my interactions as a kid, having 4 older siblings, plus my parents who communicated to me in a multitude of ways that I wasn't doing it right. You know, so even though I wanted to connect and engage in ways, eventually I just got sick of it and was, you know, doing things more and more on my own. And so I was kind of tying it back to one of those things I clicked about how I don't communicate as openly and as much as I might actually yearn to, that might actually feel good. But on that level 2, I didn't get affirmation there. So that's what I was just working on. I wanted to share that with you. So we're going to keep going with some more background on this. This next video, it's not great technical quality, but it's really good for us to understand the neuroscience of connection. So let's take a look at that. and see how this is in the wiring that's laid down for us.
We're going to talk about a form of reciprocal connectedness called attunement, and this is what it looks like. Okay, this mother and this baby are in a process called attunement. His eyes and her eyes are locked together, not locked together, but dancing together, really. And in this child's brain, 1,000 connections per second are being formed. And this child is learning to read facial expression. This child is learning about the world. He's learning that the world is responsive or not responsive. He's learning that he can be an object of delight, that he can delight others. He's learning what he's worth. He's learning what the world is like. He's learning so much so quickly that we can't even conceive of it. This interaction is critical for human development. Without it, you're impaired in so many ways. I can't even begin to speak of them. Some of them you see in your courtroom. And so what happens is impulse, the mother, by the way, is being changed as well. Oxytocin is being secreted. She's learning, she's actually in an altered state. And you moms and dads know that, right? When you're in that state with a kid, especially at that age, and they're gooey and all that stuff, you're in a reciprocal interactive state that is the foundation of empathy. Okay. So the impulses come in through the eye, they go to the visual cortex, they come up here to the limbic system, then they go up here to the frontal cortex, and the whole brain, it's not just one place that empathy resides. It resides all over the brain, and it's a process. Here's another example. This child is learning to, not just with his eyes, but also in this case with his hands, and also with his ears, and with a sense of touch and everything else, smell. He's learning. His brain is forming a concept of what other humans are like, what the world is like.
So you see how that wiring is laid down for us? And at the very beginning of our ability to connect in our rapport with other people. So this neuroscience that we have of experiencing the dependent neurogenesis, that's literally how our brains are formed. And, because we're not fully formed when we're born. Our brains are still, things are still happening. And this is going on for a long time, especially as a little kid. And it's just such a huge deal. So I want to take us even deeper into this. And these next videos that we're going to be watching, your job in this is to be present with the feelings that you're having. Some of you may have seen this before. I've seen this many times. It still hits me. I may get some tears with this. It's just so impactful when we look at it as this is the child in us. This is how we see the world. You're going to see a window into yourself here. That's how I want you to hold this next exercise. So let's look at this baby and this mom in these stages and know that this baby is still alive in all of us.
In the still face experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby who's about a year of age.
I'm like a girl. Oh.
And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her.
Yeah.
This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to.
I love that. Duck. So type into the chat what you think the child is believing here. What are the beliefs that are happening for this child? What's being programmed in here? What are the beliefs that are happening here? Yeah. Seen and matters, has worth. Yep, I matter. They're visible, loved, they're cared for and loved, they're safe. Communication's cool. Yeah, love and safety. She belongs, totally. It's okay to be close. Yeah, she's getting yes. Yes, she's saying yes to the world. Love and safety. The people are there for me. Okay, beautiful. So let's take a look at this next part. where we're going to go into the still phase.
And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this. And then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, "Come on, why aren't we doing this?" Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions, they turn away, they feel the stress of it, they actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
Oh, geez. God, that hurts every time. So in this space, type into the chat. Oh, yes, Stephanie, thank you. If you've been typing to somebody individually, click the everyone button, and so we can all see it. So with that, where there's not the reflection back, what might the child believe? Yeah, feeling ignored. Totally. And what beliefs might the child have? Love is not real. Ouch. They're alone, hurt, ignored, not loved. So sad, doesn't matter. Ignored, unwanted, unloved. Welcome, truly enigma. And she's all alone. And her needs are being ignored and not met, right? Uncertainty. The world is uncaring, not worthy. Yeah, right. Yeah, you saw that, Marilyn. Yeah. Not fun either there for the mother. I don't deserve recognition. Oh, okay, I'm unworthy. I don't deserve or acceptance. Oh, Janet, yeah, your childhood. Yeah, I think we can all relate a lot. Confused, right? Yeah, there was that panicked confusion in there. Totally, I did something wrong, right? Insecure, invisible. Yeah, Gregory. Oh, totally, Jennifer. So that gets programmed in there, Can you imagine if this happened like hundreds and hundreds of times, which it did, And so it's like, dang, no wonder I can be freaking hard on myself sometimes, given how this gets wired in. So now we get to go to the repair part. Yeah, thanks everybody for sharing. Let's check out the repair part, how we can repair that breach.
Okay. I'm here. And what are you doing? Oh, yes. Oh, what a big girl.
Just that little bit. God, I'm so relieved. Oh my goodness. So type into the chat what beliefs just that repair, that everything's okay. Yeah. Oh, geez, Sylvia. I know, over Zoom, right? It adds another layer of challenge to it. Absolutely. But let's type in, what do the repairs do? What beliefs now can happen when we repair a breach like that? She's not alone. She's good enough. Maybe the world's not so bad after all, right? God, isn't that amazing? Just like that, like all of a sudden, maybe the whole world's not so bad after all. Totally. That she matters, that you matter. Yep. Feel seen and loved, provides reassurance. Oh, she's safe. Reinforced love, positive care. I am being acknowledged. People might leave, but they also come back. Yes. Reassurance, security. Yes. To Sylvia and be okay. I am okay, centered. You know, another one is that I'll be taken care of when I'm upset. That like bad things may happen, painful things may happen, and it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me. That's a one that can come that I just think is absolutely beautiful. That there's pain and I don't have to be alone in it. So talent to all of you, blessings to all of you being with us as we are digging in deep here. So all these beliefs get wired into us from this very early age, from before a lot of our memories. Maybe we have some memories from then. So let's see what Dr. Judith Wright has to say about this neuroscience of attachment. Let's check this out.
Well, this is really important because this is really the beginning of relationship. And what the studies are showing, the neuroscience studies of relationship, both for children, but also for us as adults in our current relationship, is that being tuned into one another really matters. But we're not always tuned in. It's that actually good parents are only tuned in about 30% of the time. 70% of the time, they're not tuned in to the child or whatever. So, but those are good parents. What they're good at is this repair, what that mother did. She wasn't there, and then she was there. And that reinforced, that actually gives us more intimacy and security and closeness than if they're there all the time. Because we need to learn how to weather those episodes in that way, how to soothe ourselves, calm ourselves, how to really get reattached. This is really important. What they're finding is the ruptures in relationship isn't a big problem. It's the lack of repair. That mother repairs, and that actually strengthened that in that way and strengthens that bond. This is the beginning of what I'll talk about in a moment about attachment, building the security. It's also the beginning of our emotional regulation to the degree our parents can be with us. And when we're happy, kind of, oh, baby, you know, have more happiness, it starts to get more neurochemicals of upregulating. When we're upset, if we can get soothed, it brings us the neurochemicals of soothing, and that starts to lay the foundation for us to be able to be with our emotions. But it's not always ideal. I mean, for most of us, for about probably all of us, it's not ideal. But this is what happens, and this is the intimacy in the beginning of our relationship at this point. And again, none of us had this ideal kind of time, but it wanted to give a sense of how this wiring goes in. And many of us felt things with that baby as if it were us. Somebody's ignoring us, and because we are like that. If somebody's not paying attention, this plays out throughout the rest of our lives. So this beginning attachment is what we call it. This is developed a theory from John Bowlby. This kind of beginning, this is the beginning of building a sense of security in our relationships. Now remember, babies don't have language, they don't have critical thinking, their brains aren't fully developed, all this kind of getting programmed in. And John Bowlby, who is a psychologist and developer of attachment theory, which has now been confirmed, he did this about the 50s or so, now been confirmed with neuroscience. We can really see what happens in babies' brains, and it's quite something. And we are literally wired through the nervous systems of our mothers, our primary caregiver. So this is a kind of an upsetting example, but if you did a functional MRI of a depressed mother's brain and you did a functional MRI of the baby's brain, they match those same patterns. That nervous system gets wired in to the child. So this is, and we're all been wired by someone, and our mothers are wired by their mothers, and this is just how whoever's the primary caregiver. And this is how the beginning of our development happens, and that becomes our template. It's not hopeless. We can do something about it if we didn't get everything we needed, but we need to understand what was there. So John Bowlby says that this, whatever happens here, kind of sets the template for our relationships all of our life. He says it goes from us from the cradle to the grave. And again, ideally, we'd be accurately seen in the here and now with positive regard, consistently and unconditionally, but none of us had it ideal. But Bowlby talks about 4 aspects of attachment that happen for children early on, but we have it as adults in our adult relationships as well. There's 4 things. And let's go through that. The first thing is that seeking proximity. We want to be close. Babies want to be close to their parents. Parents want to be close to their babies. There's this bond. It's what kept babies alive. It's why mothers and fathers really want to be close to babies and take care of them. If we didn't have that drive in it, we just leave kids on a hillside or something. We needed this hard wiring of really wanting to be close so that we could make sure the species continues. But that doesn't stop in childhood. It's really related to that survival of us, but it goes our whole life. So as adults, we want to be close to the people that matter to us as well. It's been one of the difficulties of the pandemic when we weren't able to have close interactions or face-to-face or being touched. That's been difficult because we do seek proximity. We really want to be close to the people that we care about as a child, but also for us as adults. And I want you to understand how this is important for us as adults. So the next part is the relationship, is the second part, is you develop a secure base if it's ideal. And the more secure your base is from within your relationship as a child, the more you explore. The safer you feel, then the more you can fly and go try things out. The same thing happens in adults. The more security we have in our relationship, the more we can take risks, the more we can try things, the more we can go explore, we feel better about ourselves, we're bolder. That security is really a secure base for us, and it happens in our adult relationships the same way. And it's something we really need during uncertain times. Like even right now with the pandemic, really not over. We have the variants, we've got these issues with it, and it's uncertain. We can't draw security from all of our circumstances right now, but we can draw security from our relationships if we can learn to develop this more fully and really have a sense of security in our being and being with others and knowing that we're connected. That connection is extremely important for us. The third part of attachment is having a safe haven. When you're upset and when things go wrong in your world, you've got a safe haven. You've got someplace to go to really be where it's safe and you're okay. And then you can go back out in the world, but you have a safe haven as a child, with your parents, but as an adult in your friendships, your close relationships, to really create a sense of safe haven. That's part of attaching and developing that security. And the fourth thing is being upset when you're not close. Called separation distress. That's what that baby showed us. When the mother wasn't available, you could see the protest, you could see the distress that was there. So that's separation distress. But the same thing that happens for us as adults. You call somebody, they don't call you back. You've texted, they don't text you back. They're not available. That can get you really upset because this is our draw when we start getting close to people, to have all four of those things. To be close, have a secure base, safe haven, and be upset when we're not, when we're separated. This just follows us all of our lives. And this is the beginning of wiring for our relationships, which is what I want you to understand about this. So this is it, and we have these, it's hardwired, these kinds of things for ourselves. And that lasts our whole life. It's hardwiring for this drive for security, to be close, so that safe haven, that secure base, it's a big part of the rest of our life. So I want to give you another way to look at this and how this affects our relationships as well for all of us. So Dr. Dan Siegel, who is a just amazing neuropsychiatrist and really understands the neuroscience, he's one of the founders of the field of interpersonal neurobiology, with this how our relationships make us who we are and how we are from our relationships, how our relationships can help us transform. And he said that if he looks at adult attachment, it's like 3 summary statements. If we kind of put it, I'm going to ask you to look, which one of these 3 do you relate to the most? So if attaching is actually painful, if you didn't have a great time of being able to be close, you might have developed a kind of a summary of like, I'm alone and on my own. It's safer to not connect. You might have that. The next one is, I need people, but I can't depend on them. And the third one is, sometimes I fall apart and I can't depend on myself. And these are kind of the three modes that we fall into.
Okay. Well, that is a whole lot of stuff to get into. I want to boil it down into a poll to process those. So what attachment statements do you most relate to? Let's get a poll for this and see. Do you most relate to I'm alone and on my own? Or I need people, but I can't depend on them? Or sometimes I fall apart and can't depend on myself? So let's take a look at that. And let's get a poll up for that. Am I alone in it? Do I most relate to being alone and on my own, or needing people, but I can't depend on them? Or it's kind of this internal thing where I just can't depend on myself. I fall apart and I can't depend on myself. Okay. Oh, I can see as you're all entering into the poll here, it's a tight race between I'm alone and on my own, and I need people and I can't depend on them. And it looks like we're getting more, I need people, but I can't depend on them. Okay, so we're aware of the need, and we also then have the belief that it's not going to happen. So that can be a pretty invalidating place to come from. So we've got a lot, I'm alone and on my own, and then also I need people and can't depend on them. And then I relate to the one, sometimes I fall apart and I can't depend on myself. Okay, so let's move on with that, but let's hold that, just in terms of how we relate to all of this. So I want to take us into adult attachment. How does this all apply to me now? So this is stuff that happened, but what about now? But this attachment isn't just for babies. We all have attachment tendencies as adults, which I think we're all getting to here. That the ways that we were raised and how this happened time and time again is how that's happening now, how we are experiencing how we're recreating that. But let's have Dr. Judith Wright take us deeper into this. So let's look at adult attachment.
And that's Neuroscience of Connecting. And I'm going to read you a little bit from my book, The Heart of the Fight, a couple's guide to 15 common fights, what they really mean, and how they can bring you closer. So let me just share this and see if you can relate to this. Do you tend to avoid closeness? If you tend to avoid getting too close, your early years of growing up didn't provide optimal connection and attachment. Maybe you were ignored or punished or disapproved of when you expressed your needs, or you were vulnerable, or maybe you had a smothering, enmeshed relationship. But either way, going toward connection was painful and unsuccessful. So today, you avoid pain, sidestep that pain by avoiding connection. You shun closeness because it's too uncomfortable to get close or too painful. Now, this is done unconsciously. It's not a conscious thing. Now, if you dismiss closeness because you deem it as needy or unnecessary or you're self-sufficient, it's highly unlikely you would actually be reading this book or be here probably this evening, because you wouldn't be concerned about your relationship. You would figure it's the other person's problem. That's one form of that, shutting off your attachment system. You tend to think you're worthy of love, but you don't believe that others are willing or capable. Whether you avoid closeness out of fear or dismissal, you deactivate your attachment system to avoid the pain. This can show up in subtle ways, like wanting space or walking a stride ahead of a partner on the sidewalk, or not wanting to be controlled, or blowing hot and cold, or preferring solo activities, or having difficulty saying I love you, or sharing emotions or vulnerability. Or it could be fantasizing about somebody else during sex to try to keep some distance. It can also be projected with you thinking the distance is due to your partner. So some of you are wired that way, really, that the closeness is uncomfortable for you. Let's look at the other side of this. Do you desire closeness, but you don't trust others will be there? Or do you feel you'll be rejected? So in this case, you yearn for connection, but in your childhood, when these patterns were established, you couldn't count on your caregiver being there consistently or responding to you or your needs appropriately. So in adulthood, you worry whether your partner will be available, attentive, or responsive. You might get agitated or hurt or angry if your partner withdraws. You don't feel secure about being loved and lovable. You hyperactivate your attachment system and often make sometimes desperate kinds of attempts to get attention or affection from others, becoming angry or resentful when they're unresponsive. And this can manifest in a lot of ways also, maybe whining, begging, excessive texting, being gamey, seductive behavior. And in your partner, it can manifest as playing games or expecting you to mind read or guess what's going on, or fighting, or even punishing, or critical behavior. So those are the two sides of it. And this is how this plays out from these early times, how it plays out in our lives and our relationships. But there's two patterns here. They could be warring attachment patterns. If you can relate to this, sometimes you could have avoiding connection, a pattern, and then making frantic attempts to get reassurance and affection from your partner or your friend or whatever, that can get some really tough fights. And with vicious circles of one partner avoiding and then the other one scrambling to get the connection, that triggers more avoiding, it pushes them away more scrambling. And to really kind of understand these patterns and get underneath that can help us actually learn to really be able to develop more security for ourselves and more comfort with being more connected with others. So I'm just going to give you a little bit more on these attachment styles, because this early wiring plays out. This is kind of putting this together. It's adult attachment that happens in our relationships now, and I'm going to use this from Fraley and Shaver. And this works with there's kind of axes to be looking at. So the first one is the anxiety. How much anxiety do you have about being close to people? Do you have low anxiety? You feel very comfortable being with people, being close and vulnerable? Or does it make you anxious? So that's one way, one axis of this. Now the next one is the avoidance. So low avoidance is at the top, and then high avoidance. Are you pretty comfortable with people? You don't avoid, you're able to be there? Or are you pretty avoidant? It's uncomfortable for you to be with people. Where are you that avoidance? You seek out that connection, or do you avoid that? And then how do these interplay? That's what we want to look at here. See, what happens is that there's also these diagonals. I guess I could go ahead and we could share it with that too. We can build on this. So I don't want you to worry about these parts. But if you see that upper left-hand quadrant where we have low avoidance and low anxiety, that's where we want to move toward. Where we're comfortable being with people, we seek that closeness, we're not anxious being around people, we have more trust, we have a sense of, with that, that's where we feel secure in relationships. We want to be moving toward that, where we're comfortable being with people. We don't lose ourselves in our relationships, but we're not freaked out by them, we're not desperate about it, and we're not avoiding it. We can really have intimacy and satisfaction. But it just kind of depends on, where we're at. So, and depending on how we're raised, how we play around this whole, how this works. So we want to grow, again, more toward that security, seek that closeness, and not be anxious about it. It takes some work to get there, but we can do it. If we didn't get the security as kids, we can earn it. They call it earned secure attachment. We can build those circuits as adults through our close relationships, through loved ones, through the significant other, through our friends, through good coaches, caring teachers, mentors, people that provide that for us. We can build those circuits through those interactions that can help us build the security we didn't get. And that, because I've done that in my own life too with my husband Bob, really learned, my brain has shifted by integrating and earning my secure attachment through my relationships over time. So it's never too late. We can always do that, but we have to know how to do that. We need to know ourselves and understand ourselves and be aware of our patterns, and to understand the patterns of the people we relate to. So to really get a sense of, how this works, and see if you can relate to this, and let me know in the chat. Can you see some relationship patterns for you from what we're talking about? Seeing how that degree of anxiety, or the anxiousness, the degree of avoiding or pushing away, how it's impacted your relationship. And it doesn't have to stay permanent for us, but we have to understand how this plays out. I was kind of, I was one of the ones who I needed people, but I didn't feel like I could depend on them. So I was more anxious in some ways because I felt like they would not be there when I needed them. I've had to really develop that sense of expectation about myself and the world. So I think some of you can relate to this. So it's important. It's really it's part of this. And remember, we can build this earned secure attachment. And part of what's so beautiful and what the field of interpersonal neurobiology is finding is that actually in our relationships, how we build this is through relationships. Let me help you understand that. See, we were wired by relationships in the first place as babies, as children. We can rewire ourselves as adults through relationships. It's one of the beautiful powers of relationship. What happens is when we have, when there's something, I'll give you an example for myself. When I've had something tender, something that's come up from my past, something that's kind of an old wound, or something that I'm upset about, or something that evokes those old things, because I had a sense of kind of a mistaken belief of I'm not lovable. So I felt like, oh, wow, I've got to earn my love. I've got to be perfect in order to be lovable. That's painful. That's a very painful way to go about life. But it's from my early attachment, my early childhood. And with Bob, with my husband Bob, when I'm in pain or some of that gets activated for me, if I share it with him, it's on my face, or I can feel, I can see the sadness, And when he's looking at me with compassion and understanding, and I remember this old painful memory come up, what happens, if we're conscious, if we know how to do this, that every time a memory comes up, it gets reconsolidated. So that memory and that pain comes up, I see him looking at me with that love and compassion and understanding. I literally can wire his compassion and his love into that memory and change that. It's unbelievable what's possible when we really learn to be more conscious and work with this. We can really wire in others' compassion and love and acceptance into our neural net to become more secure, to become more whole, to become more integrated, to fill in those developmental gaps. And that's why we need other people in relationship to be able to grow. And we need skill to be able to do that. We teach those skills at the right foundation. I'm just trying to introduce you to it tonight, to really be able to be that. And when we do that, that's where we feel so much more intimate, so close, so connected with people, because we're literally rewiring ourselves and have that felt sense of feeling felt and seen and understood with another, which builds us a core sense of self and more security, which makes us stronger. Doesn't make us more dependent on that person. It builds a sense of inner strength. So there's so many more things for me to go into. There's other developmental levels that I'm not going to go into right now that in our trainings we can teach you about. So I only went level 1 and level 2, but it goes all the way up, and there's different paths at each one that impact us in our relationship. But I think the biggest thing is just to kind of we all have developmental gaps, and they play out in relationships. We might not have gotten that secure base that we yearn for. We might not have gotten affirmed. We might have been punished. We might have all kinds of things. We might have had strong feelings we couldn't integrate at the time of upbringing, unresolved issues, authority issues, unfinished business. It's part of being a human being, but we can do something about that. So, but I want to explain how this plays out again in relationships for us. And I'm going to share again from The Heart of the Fight. It was written by myself and my husband, Bob. So both of us wrote this together, and from our own experience and from our research. And oh my gosh, we learned a lot just even writing a couple's book together. But I want to share this. This section, well, it has a funny title, but I'm going to explain it. It's called Picking a Perfect Prick. All right, let me explain that. So no, we're not putting down your choice of a mate. We want you to recognize the perfection of your partner, and especially the way they prick your unfinished business. Harville Hendricks asserts that our unconscious mind is working overtime to choose a complement to ourselves, someone to activate our matrix, that of our unconscious beliefs that propel us into our relationships, really pricking that unfinished business, pricking those tender, mistaken beliefs so we can complete it. Because you really believe that we're like our unconscious mind is trying to complete that, trying to tend to that, trying to integrate those parts of ourselves. So, and anytime we're in a close relationship, it's going to bring all that stuff to the surface. All those, it'll poke at our old emotional wounds. It's going to rub metaphorical salt into them. It's going to bring it to the surface any aspects of ourselves that have not been integrated or discovered. It's what happens when we start to get close to other people. And it's not some kind of bad cosmic joke. Instead of being destined to fall in love with a fairy tale prince or princess, you're destined to spend your life with a sparring partner. But if you want a full engaged life, you need that partner. The unconscious purpose of relationship is to complete or continue our development and provoke us to learn and grow and even transform ourselves. That's why we want to look at this. And this is how we can use the neuroscience of connection to understand how we got wired and how we can use it to rewire ourselves and understand that these things are coming to the surface and some of those upsets so we can tend to it. But let me help you understand this. It's more about this wiring thing and about our relationships. See what happens, because it's unconscious material that's playing out, we're only attracted to people who unconsciously remind us of our parents from this early attachment. So this attraction is an unconscious response to people who unknowingly to us represent aspects of a relationship with their parents or whoever it was that raised us. So for example, let's say you had a distant father, you might be attracted to unavailable men. Or maybe you had an abusive father, or maybe he was just kind of a jerk. So when this little girl grows up, she's going to be more likely to be attracted to jerks, or kind of the opposite, kind of milquetoast men, or guys that don't treat her well. Or let's say you had a more distant or smothering kind of relationship early on, you're going to be attracted by distant people if it was distant. If you were smothered, you're going to be more attracted to people that are smothering. But you're going to be attracted to the same or its polar opposite. It sparks that same response in you because, see, it wouldn't feel like love otherwise. You experience love, whatever that was. It wasn't perfect, but that's what the love template is for you. So we're only attracted to people that feel the same way to us unconsciously as those our early relationships with our caregivers, our parents. So when they say you marry your mother or your father, they're not kidding. There's something to that unconsciously. And we're often, and because of that, we're oftentimes attracted to people that are bad for us because it has that same kind of schema with it. And this is painful. This is kind of hard to see, but it's so important to understand this so we know what that work is. So really get it, and it can be the opposite sex parent or a different gender. It's really just what are those early imprints for us and how that plays out.
Ah, shit. I hate that. Well, I want you to relate to me. I'll share a little bit, but type in the chat, how so? Mark, how is it so true? How have you seen this in your relationships? That you've unconsciously picked someone that's like your parent? How so? Oh yeah, Robert, you're asking. Well, I'll share a little bit. I want to hear. Mark says it's so true. Type in, can you give an example of how you've seen this in your relationships? Okay. Got it. Oh, Janet, yeah. Oh, yeah, Gabriella. Yeah, me too. Just when I think they're different. Ah, yeah. Right? It's so sneaky. So, it's so funny because I married my wife, who on the surface is like, she's this vibrant human being, just spunky, out there, courageous, like in the world. And I was like, man, this is like about as different from my parents as I can possibly imagine, right? And yet, in the ways of intimacy, in terms of communicating needs, communicating yearnings, I picked somebody that was like expecting me to read their minds while I'm expecting her to read my mind. And so a lot of the first signals, I don't know, I look back on it, but what I thought I was getting into was very different than what I really was. But now if I'm paying attention to my unconscious mind, then apparently my unconscious mind is picking somebody that mirrors my early childhood existence. And I think about it, it's like, actually, my parents were pretty out there. They're kind of like Jesus hippies and traveling all over the place. And it's like, wow, actually, I'm seeing more similarities in this. But the real thing was around the communication. And what I think is beautiful in this, and I think we're going to be getting into this about how there's purpose in this, so my wife and I have been working for years around our relationship, and I'm completing my unfinished business from my childhood while working things out with her, like telling her what I really want instead of hating her for not just knowing. So I'm actually leaning into my communications, which I've shared with you earlier that I learned how to avoid that. And so, being more direct about stuff, but I didn't even realize I was doing that until I started paying attention to it. So anyway, I love this. Thank you for sharing in the chat here. I'm looking back here. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Zandra. Uh-huh. Totally. So yeah, so there's that, the avoidance stuff there. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, no, my parents could not read each other's minds either. They're working on it too. Anyway, and mom and dad, if you see this, they often join in. And we'll watch the recording. We've worked on this together, so you know what's going on here. All right. So whoever your perfect prick is, whoever you've picked in your life, let's hear from Dr. Judith Wright about how this is one aspect of connection and how there's a purpose in it. So there is a reattachment here. Let's get into it.
What I want to look at now is just more about this interpersonal neurobiology and the neuroscience of connecting and how this forms us and transforms us. We do wire each other. Remember, every time a memory comes up, it's re-encoded. So if we're feeling deeply and somebody else holds us with that compassion and understanding, acceptance, we're re-encoding that in our memories. This can really help us grow ourselves up to really complete some of that unfinished business, to really grow ourselves up for intimacy. But we have to be kind of conscious about that. There's skills. I can't teach them all tonight, but just to know there are skills. It is something. But the more conscious we can become of how we're wired, what our beliefs are, more conscious of our developmental gaps, what our needs are, and take responsibility to tend to those, we can have a totally different future. Jack Mesereau, who is the founder of transformative learning theory, he said, you know, the purpose of childhood is formation. That's just how we get formed. But the purpose of adulthood is transformation. So that's what we want to be looking at. How do we take on that transformation of ourselves? Take that formation to transformation. So that's what we're going to be looking at. So we want to look now a little bit on the skills of relating here and how we can use what we've been learning so far to do something about it. I want to give you something for us to work with in this way. So I want us to really look at our yearnings right now. These 6 skills we're going to look at. We're going to focus on yearning and engaging a little bit tonight. So let's look at this. Deep yearning is really important because it's really the yearnings we need to take responsibility to meet ourselves and also to go for it more directly in our relationships. To be in touch with what we really yearn for deep inside in our relationships. You know, to love and be loved, to touch and be touched. These are the kinds of things that we want to be with, to be secure, to be safe, to be seen, to be heard, to be known, to be understood, to be affirmed, to express ourselves, to matter, to belong, to connect deeply, to make a difference. You know, all these things really matter. And if we're oriented to those and we can learn how to meet those, that's where we get satisfied in relationships. And that's what we define as a good relationship. When we are actively working to fulfill our yearnings and we know that that's what matters. And it's really so important for us. But oftentimes we don't know what we yearn for. We know what we want. I want him to pick up his socks. I want her to stop spending money. But we don't know what we yearn for underneath, which is more important. Our yearnings are repressed often from our consciousness, kind of socialized out of us. We know our wants, you know, I want them to be different, do this, do that, I want to eat this, but we don't always know what we yearn for underneath. So our job is to really awaken those yearnings and really engage to meet them. And this is what we teach in our trainings. And it's really what that is and how to navigate from that. Can I tell you the difference it's made for me in my life? And we use relationships and we use life assignments to help reawaken us and to reprogram ourselves, which we do at the Wright Foundation and the graduate universities. We learn how to take these exercises into our lives to be able to get those needs met and to really understand how pure they are. So, and partly, just if I go back to bad and good relationships, is that bad relationships don't meet our yearnings or they diss them or we don't know how to get them met in there. It's not just for somebody else to meet them for us, it's ours to go about more responsibly meeting them. And when our yearnings are not met, it's really painful. We have a kind of a flood of feel-bad chemicals, neurochemicals that flood through us. It hurts. But when our yearnings are met, oh my gosh, it's amazing. We get a flood of feel-good, really feel-good chemicals that come into our system at that point. And dopamine and oxytocin, opioids and serotonin, like, ooh, it's like that's what feels so good. And again, when they're not met, there's that flood of bad, feel-bad chemicals, the cortisol and other things. So that great relationships are really guided by our yearnings. And we need to really get to the yearnings underneath our conflicts and understand they're beautiful, they're worthy, and we deserve to get them met. And we have to take responsibility for getting those met and asking for things more directly. But so, you know, for me to understand how I really yearn to be seen and to connect. So when Bob's reading and he doesn't listen to me, like, I don't care if it's iPad, his computer, or whatever, I'm like, I talk to him, he doesn't hear me. I like, don't exist. I am very triggered by that. And it goes back to my childhood, my dad reading the newspaper and hiding behind that, not responding to me. But rather than just trying to control him, put that down or listen to me, when I really can say, oh my gosh, I'm really hurt right now. This is a real trigger for me. because I yearn to connect. I yearn to be seen. I yearn to know that I matter. And I realize I'm not feeling that in this moment. And I can express that more responsibly, and he can then respond to that. But I'm not trying to just control his behavior. I know more what's going on with me and can ask for that more directly. So these are the kinds of things that really make a difference for us.
So what yearnings that Dr. Judith Wright is listing out do you most relate to? What yearnings in your relationship? And let's get a poll up for these. So what yearnings? To love and be loved? To be secure and safe? To be heard, known, understood? To be affirmed? To express myself? To grow, develop? To become? To matter? To belong, to connect? What yearnings do you most relate to here? To be seen, heard, known, understood. Sherry, yeah. Robert, to be known, right? And feel these, to be secure, safe. Beautiful. Yeah, keep clicking on that. The ones that you relate to, this is universal. We all have yearnings. We all yearn to be affirmed, to express, to belong, to make a difference. This is like, I am not a scientist and I have zero research on this, but I picture sometimes that the entire universe is just made out of yearnings. It's just this explosion of something that we all relate to, yearning to exist. Okay, we are totally to be seen, heard, known, and understood. That is the one that is getting the most, 75% of us. That's the one that is really on our heart. And right after that, we've got to belong and connect deeply and to love and be loved. Oh, that's beautiful. And thank you for sharing. So yearning is a wonderful thing. And let's see what happens when we take this into action. Because just feeling that this is only a piece of it, we want to take this into connection. So let's check out engaging, the next phase of the Evalating model, and see how this relates. Let's take a look at that.
Important to us. But in order to really get these met, in order to really shift our wiring, we can't just yearn. It's an important place to start. We have to engage to really change our programming and activate our neuroplasticity. We really have to engage. And we're going to go into that a bit more to understand this. And this is what the studies show that really takes to connect in relationship. This is how we can get those yearnings met, to really be more present, to be more conscious. This is so, so important. We have to act on our yearnings. And now we know what we're yearning for. We need to do something about it. But this means we need to be not just active, but we need to be in touch with our hearts here, to really be willing to go into the unknown, to be able to, really, be more us, to emerge, to actually have things come out of us in that way, to really grow ourselves in that way, to have full emotional expression, whether it's our tears or our anger or our joy, but to be able to share all of that with others. And engaging means that we dig in, we mix stuff up, we're willing to be messy, that we make mistakes boldly. This is torn outside the lines. We're willing to be embarrassed. We'll risk more. We go outside of our comfort zone and share more. And that we're responsible with it though as well. We're more in the moment. We're willing to be more, we can get hurt with this, all of these things. So really getting a sense of being willing to live unedited, to be spontaneous, to be willing to be made fun of, but to be ourselves fully. It's the only way we're going to experience intimacy and develop more of that sense of our own security, is by being ourselves so fully in that way. And I want you to just it's a little different than not just doing things, but doing things that meet those yearnings, but it means we've got to be a little more real with this. So we really need to engage, because engaging is where real connecting happens. So I want to show you our engagement continuum right now and how we can use that to help us with this. So this is our second skill here. So on the engagement continuum, there's a left and a right side. There's a stormy, rocky relationship side, and there's a sunshiny side. So let me see if we can get to that one. Yeah, there we go. All right. So on the left side of this continuum does not meet your yearnings. On the right side meets your yearnings. And in order to see that dividing line there, when in order to get to that right side, we need to be more conscious. We need to be in touch with our hearts and our emotions, and we need to be in touch with our yearnings. So we can meet those yearnings with consciousness. So, but on the left-hand side is when we're not conscious. We're kind of reflexive, reactive. We're not so great on that left side.
So I love that. That left side not meeting our yearnings, the right side meeting our yearnings. And let's look at some of the common things that we do in relationships when we're not conscious, when we're reflexive, reactive. It's not so great, but we all do them. Let's take a look at this. Let's get up this poll about what do we tend to do in relationships. Okay, avoid conflict. Walk away when things get tense. Stonewall to give the silent treatment. Zone out. Walking on eggshells, being careful not to hurt others' feelings. Sticking to non-personal conversations like the weather, sports, politics. I know, right? Can talk about music all night long. Talk about logistics. Okay, yep, just making plans. And having repetitive, non-productive fights. Oh, geez, yeah, that can be like a drug of its own. Being defensive, criticizing, attacking, rolling eyes, and just getting into the stuff that's actually like detrimental. So all this stuff on the left side, what do you relate to in your relationships? Which of the following? We're getting a lot. Is zoned out, right? Yeah. I know. I got scared when coming back and I was looking and I was like, whoa, I am feeling afraid right now. And I got a little zoned out as I was reading zoned out. Avoiding conflict and walking away when things get tense. Totally. Cooperator is my primary personality style. So learning to be with conflict is something I'm very much working on. That's the number one, actually, is avoiding conflict. It's a thing that most people relate to in this. Okay. And then walking on eggshells is there, zoning out. And a great way to avoid conflict is to zone out. And then next up, we've got being defensive and having repetitive, non-productive fights. Yeah, those two go hand in hand. Oh, thank you for sharing that. So all that stuff, it's on the left side. Yearnings are not getting met. And it's, it's kind of like the bad wiring. It doesn't really facilitate possibilities, potential and stuff. So let's take a look at the engagement continuum and moving over to the right side and looking at the rules of engagement and things that are healthy, things that help us develop new neural pathways. Let's take a look at what we have to say about this.
So we're going to look at aspects of this engagement continuum again to be able to work with this. And we'll go through this. You'll see this small thing here. And we're going to look at some rules of engagement. How do we engage to be able to do? We're just going to cover the first two. Accentuate the positive, which gets us more on the right side, and minimize the negative, which is less of the left side. So let's look at like what doesn't work and what makes a bad relationships. This is stuff on the left side here, which we've just looked at.
Okay, so what doesn't work? And let's look at this. What's this? What's something I've got around how I used positive attention to change something. So, I've been sharing about my relationship with my wife, and one of the things is like, if I come home and acknowledge the space that she's created, if I simply acknowledge, rather than like, just picture this, coming home, I've got whatever I've got going on in my day, and I'm wanting to connect. The difference between opening the door and being like, oh, where is she? Oh, she's in her studio, making art, doing that stuff. Oh, she doesn't care about me. versus, oh, how cool is that? She's in her studio making art. Oh, I want to find out what she's up to. And hey, I'm home. I get to see you. I get to be, and just notice the difference there. All it takes, it's not a whole lot. And that's actually something I am working on, about how I get home, how I show up to a meeting, or how I show up anywhere, and being able to flip to seeing the positive. So I would love to hear some people here. It says unmute. I'm already unmuted. I hope so. I just had a total, okay. I was great. I'm seeing that you can hear me. Jeez. I got this message that was like, unmute yourself. I was like, oh shit. So I would love to hear from you. What are ways that you can choose to be on the right side of the engagement continuum, where you're choosing to accentuate the positive? How can you do that? Receptive, open. How his day went, Janet? Totally. Oh, Gabriella, listening. Speak on it. Reframing the engagement, Sadia. Yep. Yeah. Sometimes finding something else to do. Okay. Being open-minded. Well, let's take a look at it. Let's look at the engagement continuum and learning to minimize the negative. Yeah, give the benefit of the doubt. So let's take a look at this and see.
Yeah, we want to minimize the negative. We want to minimize these kinds of things on the left-hand side of the engagement continuum. So let's just look. We're going to kind of go quickly through this, but really one of the ways that's not so great is when we're disengaged. You want to get more engaged, not disengaged. So let's look at this couple who's kind of just at this. Do you have those? Would be 99, Carrie. So the first thing is disengage. This is on this passive destructive. This is when we're checked out. We're not all there. So I want to show you some visuals of that. So let's look at this couple staring. And do you have the couple at the table staring? There we go. Yeah, look at how out of it they are. Look at this next one. Get a sense of being disengaged. Yeah, they're not with one another, avoiding each other. You can just see, there we go. We kind of got that stonewalling. These people may have deactivated their attachment system to avoid the pain. Or that this is the kind of stuff that can happen when you're not comfortable being close and you have that kind of, Another part of this is hiding out, where you're afraid of attaching, or having a sense of boredom, distance, and unhappiness, or withdrawing or stonewalling, not engaging. This is all this disengaging. This is tough. This could be the silent treatment, being quiet or smug or icy or superior, or passive aggressive. You know, not being a super out there aggressive, but yeah, you got it. Middle finger in that way. Secrets, untruths are part of this as well, or just being really zoned out. This is when we're disengaged and things that not what we want to do less of this, but to be aware. Misengaged, we're kind of sort of engaged, but we're not really. This is where we're avoiding conflict. Oh my gosh, we have couples that come in for couples work and they proudly say, oh, we never fight. And I'm like, oh my God, that's too bad. You're not invested enough in the relationship. I mean, if you're invested, you're going to step on each other's toes. We can actually work something out. But if you're not fighting, you're not engaged fully. And that doesn't work. So also related, this is being too careful, making nice, walking on eggshells, which is not what we want in relationships. Don't rock the boat. Yes, rock the boat. Or get lost in our soft addictions, you know, over shopping or overeating, or it's another part of it, work we do at the foundation. But, you know, all those kinds of things, social media rather than being with one another, and texting, over texting. Oh my gosh, don't break up over text. Use the phone to call. This is, you know, get in person, whatever that is. It's not a great way to communicate. But, so that's kind of that kind of sort of there. But now we have pseudo-engaged. That's the next part of this, where we kind of look like we're engaged, but we're not. Maybe we're like, it's kind of like that video clip we saw. We're blaming, or maybe feeling shame, justifying things in that way. Like, it's your fault, it's just that kind of thing. Or we get into drama. like the drama triangle that can happen. And what happens here is we can become a drama queen, where we're like a victim, or we feel sorry for ourselves and want to be saved or rescued and get mad if somebody doesn't take care of us. Or a persecutor, we're blaming other people for things. Or a rescuer, we're taking care of others, but we're not taking care of ourselves. These are all not great patterns. Or we look like we're engaging, but we're not, because we're having conversations, but they're not personal. We're talking about stuff or logistics. Studies show that couples have non-logistical conversations only 17 minutes a week or less. That's not a lot of intimacy. So these are things we want to do less of, but if we're not aware, we won't do that. The next part on this left-hand side is active destructive. This is what John Gottman calls the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. These are the most destructive to our relationship. So if it's a marital relationship, it's the most likely to lead to divorce. It's going to cause the problems in your relationships at work. Like when you're at work and you want to choke your coworker, that's gotten to a pretty extreme place. Or criticizing someone rather than going for what you want. Or contempt, and this could be, hostile words, tone, eye rolling, sneers, or insulting, but that can include sarcasm, hostile humor, mockery, or defensiveness. These are the 4 ones that can be really damaging. I'm so guilty of defensiveness. I'll be fighting with my husband. He's pretty aware of things. He'll tell me, Judith, you're doing this or whatever. And I say, no, I'm not. I didn't do that. And he'll say, Judith, you're so defensive. And I'll say, I am not. Well, gosh, I just proved how defensive I am by my response. So that's one that I've been continually working on. These aren't sins. This is part of being a human being. But the issue is these don't meet our yearnings. We're not going directly for what we need and want. We're not asking for what we need or want. We're not being responsible. They're unconscious kinds of reflexive kinds of things that just pop out, but we're not all there. We're not that present. What does work, what does make for great relationships, goes to the right side. It's accentuating the positive now, where we meet our yearnings, we're more conscious, we're in touch with our hearts. So really kind of getting, relationships aren't fragile. We don't need to treat them so gently. They're resilient. And it really is important for us because, relationships are messy. Love is messy. And it's really, and like true love is some sanitized version of running through the wildflowers. It's real. And it's full engagement, really like rolling up your sleeves and getting into life and getting into relationship and being real. And what we want to be looking at is how do we do that? So we're going to go and kind of show us some slides now that will kind of help us. This is the constructive creative side of accentuating the positive. And this can help us rematrix and transform us and the relationship. So if we can, I'm going to go back to if we can get that one, to be able to look at this constructive creative side on the engagement continuum. All right. So this is, again, about accentuating the positive. Now, I want you to get this right side really matters. So for everything we do on the left-hand side, we need, for every one of those, we need 5 on this positive side, because every snarky outburst, eye roll, sarcastic remark, name calling, superior comment, silent treatment, we need 5 positives. And this really matters. So, like, for example, couples don't break up because they're having fights or nasty, unpleasant interactions. It's because they don't have enough of these positive ones. So we need to add these to really be working to finish our unfinished business, to meet our yearnings, to grow ourselves, to build the foundation for relationships, because this is what helps us weather the tough times. And this is what helps us build that basis of security for ourselves and that safe haven. So we can fight, we can work stuff out because we've got enough of a deposit of goodness and goodwill in our lives. So this is more intimate engagement. And this is where we want to be way more engaged, where we're more active, intimate. We're meeting our yearnings. We're conscious now. We're more responsible. We're more genuine. We're more real. We've got more truth now, more straight talk. We're fighting. We're allowing ourselves to really get in there, to really say what's so for ourselves, but we're resolving our fights as well. We're learning the skills to do that. And what we find in the relationship research is happy partners pay attention to the small stuff, those daily obstacles, those little bumps in the road. They really pay attention to those. They don't let the small issues pile up until they cause a big problem. And they don't sweep them under the carpet. Because couples who fight a lot early in relationship, have those angry but honest conversations, they're the happiest ones. So it's not about thinking positively all the time, but that short-term discomfort of an angry but honest conversation is really beneficial to our lives and our relationships in the long run. Couples who don't fight in the first 3 years appear happy, but if you studies show if you follow them beyond that, they're the ones who are more likely to get divorced because they're not working stuff out. So accentuate the positive doesn't mean like nice. It means real, fighting, genuine, feelings, engaging. It also means we have a lot of novelty and variety and surprises that wakes our brain up, that we're actually that more engaged in our relationships, our friendships, our work relationships, our love relationships. And we're much more open to new opportunities, which is really important. We're more willing to take risks. Oh my gosh, we have more fun. We have more fun in our lives when we really let ourselves flow this way. We have fun at home, and we have more fun at work. So let's look at these. We have more of a sense of humor, but the more we can develop laughter, oh, it's so helpful. Affection, to really focus on affection, to show more interest in others around us, to really care, to build more of a sense of joy in our life. Oh, I love this, I love that. I just love that. To have that sense of being cared about or special, and to really be able to offer affirmation. And men need affirmation more than women do, to be really made to feel special and appreciated for what they do. And for intimate relationships, closer relationships, the happiest couples don't say, they're not content with, oh, it's decent or okay, or it's just so-so. They describe their partnership very positively. They're great, it's amazing, I'm incredibly lucky, I'm grateful, I'm blessed. Wow, so that's how they hold it. And this is what we want to be moving towards on that side. And they pay attention on a daily basis to their relationships. So this is important. Just reminders, you know this, but I'm underlining this. This is what helps us build the foundation for that secure attachment, for more that sense of security and that safe haven. And so deep engagement means now we're starting to even build more earned secure attachment. We've got more of that accessibility, that responsiveness, engagement, which is really what Sue John, this is adult attachment. We're available for others. They're available to us. We're available to them. We feel valued. We can get each other's attention more easily, confide in each other, share care and concern for each other. This is where we build that secure attachment as adults. And this is in building toward having deeper conversations, happier relationships with deep conversations, where people share their hopes and their dreams and their fears to really, really be able to have their spiritual lives together. It's really important. So I want to help us get a sense of that and get a sense of like who we are. We're ourselves. We share our gifts and what we're interested in with one another. We're aware of what our missions are, and we share that. We think about our legacy and meaning and purpose. But also we celebrate the good times. We celebrate others' achievements as if they were our own. That's actually more important than being there for others in bad times. Like being happy for others. And also what helps us grow this is growing ourselves and supporting our friends' growth, our coworkers' growth, our employees' growth, our partners' growth, helping each other reach their goals. That's what builds strength in relationships, and inspiring one another. If we continue to do this, then we can go to transformative engagement. And this is where, like, wow, we can actually become amazingly different people. We're like merging to ourselves. We have full out expression. We have more anger, more joy. We're more unedited. We go into the unknown. We do really all of our feelings. We're going out there with more discovery, and we create a vision for our lives and for our relationships. And this is where we not only meet our yearnings, we're aware of the yearnings of our partner, the people around us, our friends, and we're also realizing that our relationships can benefit the world beyond us. We start thinking about the yearnings of everybody. We really want to be aware of this greater sense of this we-ness in the world. So this is real, authentic connection with ourselves and others, to be genuine and vulnerable. And as we do that, we grow. We become someone else. We get closer. We're more secure. We're more safe. We experiment more. This is where life becomes so much more amazingly robust. That's why it's so important to look at the neuroscience of our connection. Whatever we didn't have, to develop that over our adulthood, so we can have these amazingly fulfilling relationships that also help us become better people.
Wow. Okay. So I want to hear from everybody quickly. Type it into the chat. What would you like to have more of in your relationships? Having genuine, truthful, affirming, real interactions, being in touch with my yearnings, deeply heartfelt, fully involved in all interactions, discovering more of myself and others. I love that one. That's one reason I'm a coach, is I love the discovery of who somebody is. Being fully expressed in my relationships, and type it into the chat. Having interactions that meet the yearnings involved of everyone. Yep. Have responsible, responsive, and humor-filled conversations. Totally. Learning more and more to have a sense of humor about myself. and feeling felt and known. I love that. Well, thank you. So I am going to share one more tidbit with everyone tonight. But before I do that, I want to get into something, a gift that I mentioned earlier to some of you who are asking about reviewing this or a workbook. But there's some special gifts that I want to give out just for you being here today. So I want you to go to rightfoundation.org/raffle just to get your gift. First, you're going to go there, complete the online form. And just by filling this out, you're going to be entitled to some prizes and entered into our raffle. So let me tell you what you're going to get. So your free gift is to join us for our signature emotional intelligence training, the More Life training. You get to do that. We are actually changing things around a little bit. And so by being here, though, you can get access to that for no cost, have it be complimentary. So it's November 4th through the 6th. And if that time doesn't work, we do it several times a year. So the other way you could do it is in that raffle form, just check which time you can go to. And if you want to sign up right now, you can always go to morelifetraining.com and enter the code MOREU, and that's going to give you free admission as well. So, but enter into the raffle because we're going to pick a winner tonight. And whoever wins the raffle prize, you're going to get a bundle of books. So you might get the Heart of the Fight book that I was saying is so great in that bundle. And you're also going to get a free coaching session with me. That's a $225 value, a free coaching session with me. Also, I mentioned earlier that we have an accredited graduate university, the Wright Graduate University. If you're interested in learning about master's degrees or the graduate certificates there, make sure to click that on the raffle form. So again, go to rightfoundation.org/raffle, fill out the form to gain access to these prizes, enter in to win a raffle. Yes, I'm looking forward to meeting with whoever wins, and sign up for the More Life training. That is where you're going to go on a deep dive. I know some of you were just on the More Life training a couple weekends ago, and holy shit, every time I do that, I am blown away. And if you haven't done it, sign up for it now. So if you sign up for it, we will send you a free book, Transformed. So go ahead and do that now. So this last piece of information, and let me check in with my media team. Did we get we got that in there? Awesome. Okay, cool. So thank you everybody for entering in there. And we have a winner. Woo! Pierre Folot. I don't know if I'm saying your name right, but Pierre, you are the raffle winner. Congratulations. We'll be in touch with you about where to send the books to, and I will be reaching out to set up a session. I'm looking forward to getting to know you more. Congratulations. And we are jamming here, and I want to get us out. Let's take okay, gotcha. No, cool. Let's take into this last bit of information I want to give you. We've alluded to this, but I want us to leave this webinar tonight with a purpose, with a way of going into our relationships, into our interactions, with everything that we've been with, the upset, the stuff that we don't always want to look at, the good stuff, the stuff that we want more of. And as we take a look at this video, be picturing how you're going to use this in your life going forward from this evening. So let's take a look at the purpose of relationships.
The purpose of relationships. Like, what is the purpose of relationships? Well, I think you're getting it from this. It's not just to, feel better or have somebody just totally take care of you or whatever, though I hope that happens for you. But it's something more. When we really look at this template for a relationship, the purpose of relationships is to challenge us, to awaken us, to develop us, to support us, to nurture us, and to nurture one another. We call it's a womb and a crucible for growth. Our relationships can provide that safety, that security for us, like a womb, but also be a crucible to be on our cutting edge to help us grow and to learn and to see our unfinished business and to be able to fill in those gaps and bring that to the surface so we can tend to it and get whole and integrated. So really, ultimately, it's for us to grow, to transform, to realize our potential, to bring out the best in ourselves, not just to feel better, but to become a better person through relating, because we're built to learn and grow and evolve. And if we can become more aware of this programming or unconscious beliefs, we can open up new possibilities for our relationships in our life. And we can become our best selves. That's what I'm so excited about. We can grow ourselves up, take more responsibility to be able to become who we can become. And we do that with relationships. And our relationships help rewire us. Remember that? It's really by being genuine with one another, being in our peace, hearing our feelings, having someone get us and understand us, accept us, have compassion. We can wire that into ourselves. We literally can change our histories. We can change our memories through that. It's like, wow, it's like, gosh, it's like it's never too late to have a happy childhood. And we do that through relationship. But it needs to be this really more that challenging, to be supported, to be nurtured, but also be challenged and on our edge, to become who we can become, to really be able to live. And the more security we can develop, the more we can risk in life and experiment more. So important to develop, whether it's a significant other, our friendships, our coworkers, our families, our neighbors, just relating really matters and being ourselves as fully as we can.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I'm so happy about the purpose of relationships not being all the junk that I thought it was before, but that it's really a way for me to connect with myself differently, moment by moment, that I need other people's neural networks and who you are, and that engaging with all of you in different ways helps me become more of who I can become. That's the freaking purpose, that it's like, okay for me to feel hurt and have that stuff happen, all of that, fine. I so love that. So I just want, as we're taking this into our evening and into our lives, I want to get from tonight that you're going to take with you. So what are you going to do differently? Just pick one thing. Just pick one of these. Remember that I can change the way I interact with others. I can change my unconscious beliefs. That's freaking huge. If you pick that, that's amazing. Like, oh my gosh, think about how that can change your life, change the way that you interact, change how you feel about yourself, or practice being more on the right side of the engagement continuum, accentuating the positive and like not doing so much of the bullshit. Or remember the purpose of relationships is in my interactions. So cool. Or reminding myself to be fully felt, I have to engage fully. So it's a big one for me. So I'm not going to avoid as much. I'm going to lean into the engagement with others. Look to meet my hardwired yearnings and in my interactions to be more nourished. So just being aware of that as I'm going into my interactions. I love that. Oh, beautiful, beautiful talent, everybody. So as you are taking all of your takeaways into your evening, into your life, I love seeing this stuff in the chat, and it's beautiful. Right on, Jazziel. I could say all of your names. I'm not going to. I want to get us out. It is 8 o'clock. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. I loved your engagement tonight. And let's go forth, live fully, laugh loudly, risk boldly, feel deeply, express fearlessly, fight fiercely, play hard, and work joyfully. Let's go forth and do this stuff. Thank you, everybody. Yes. Oh, thank you.